From the John DeVito Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, November the 19th. And now, here they are in person. Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
Woo! All right, John.
Off and running on another edition of Armchair Experts, like it or not. We missed last time. You were off on special assignment.
A special assignment.
And I was sick, so you get us this week, and I think you're going to get us next week too, if we can manage that, because we have to do our turkey show next week.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
We got to figure that out. So what's up there, Mr. Massaro? This is show prep for us today. This is live show prep.
I'm just noticing Jim's got the paper open in front of him, and I can still actually see far enough away to. He's got the article about Tim Beckman.
The caption on this is from today's Sun-Times. Gotta love the optimism. In his own world, Beckman sees 8 wins next season. I wonder if he sees who's going to be the head coach.
Jim, the one thing I'm always interested in.
He has no more wind.
One thing I'm always interested in about the Scribes is that now they've had this guy fired from about midway through his first year till now, and that's what they're saying. But I don't know exactly, if they have inside information from the AD's office, or the AD is a buddy of Beckman's, obviously.
Yeah, he hired him.
And the other thing is, I don't know enough about Illinois football. All I know is what I read, and what I read is never super positive. But maybe Illinois football is turning around. Maybe there's an influx of new talent that this guy has recruited. Who knows? How could either of us really know that?
No, we can't. And I don't even know, anybody indicating, anybody interested in Illinois or whatever.
I was in a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were I know one of the guys I work with is a U of I grad, and he was saying that he says Illinois football wasn't good when I was down there, and he hasn't.
No, Illinois
he's in his 20s, so it hasn't been that long since he was a grad.
Yeah,
but I was saying, when we were kids, was it Pete Elliott was there, and we had the Rose Bowl team in '63 with Butkus and all of those guys,
right?
And they won the Rose Bowl.
Mario Campanaro
was the third-string quarterback, one of our gym teachers and a coach of ours.
And he reminded all of us one week on a Big Ten Game of the Week that
he was the guy holding the clipboard.
He says there's a great shot of me on the sidelines holding the clipboard.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And and then after that there was a long gap where they didn't do well, and then Mike White came. I think I want to say that would have been the 80s.
They got a Rose Bowl and got clobbered out there.
Yeah, and then Mike White left for I won't go into that whole story, but I guess the point is Illinois football has been very iffy over the years.
You had Ron Turner, and I think didn't he get them into a bowl game?
He might have.
And Zook.
Of course, getting him into a bowl game these days is not that big of an accomplishment.
Wins 6 ball games, and you make it into a bowl game. I remember that last year that the last time they went to a bowl game, they were 6-6. They played UCLA, who was 6-7. Both teams had gotten rid of their coaches. It was both teams had interim coaches.
That's right, yeah.
And they played in Who Gives a Rat's Hoo-Ha Bowl, I think it was.
Well, Jim, think about this. The way they're doing this, the bowls these days, some of these bowls, I'm amazed anybody shows up because they're so meaningless. I mean, in the days that we grew up and through most of our adulthood, say the Rose Bowl, you knew it was going to be the Big Ten versus the Pac-10 or Pac-12 then.
That's right.
That was, and you know what? Those rivalries had developed over the years. It was a game that was looked forward to.
Yeah.
Now today, even even with this, the 4 teams that they're going to finally figure out who the top 4 are, nobody's going to really care.
And I still don't like it.
Yeah, put it this way: the writers and the coaches, my opinion is, would do just as good a job of figuring out who those 4 teams are as this system that they have now.
And again, I think there can be too much in the way of politics still in this.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a big fan of the BCS, but I think it was, me being a numbers guy, it was very subjective, or it was objective. Objective, subjective? No, it's objective. You had the numbers.
Objective, right?
Yeah, you had the numbers. You had your rating, and boom, these 2 teams are the best. You play.
You know what I think would be more interesting, and I think it would make it interesting for everybody and get everybody into it. Now, to me, I have nothing against the SEC, but everybody says the SEC is the best conference, and maybe it is.
It might be. I think it is. I really think it is.
But you know what? I really have no interest to see Mississippi State play Alabama in the and I'm just throwing two schools out there. That's not what's going to happen. But I have no interest to see 2 SEC schools face off for the national championship.
More than likely the 3rd time they played each other that year.
Exactly. What I would say is they have what they call the Power 5 conferences.
Right.
Now let's throw in 3 other conferences. Let's take 8 teams, the top teams, however way you want to determine those teams, from those 8 conferences, and let's have a playoff and play down to 2 teams. So you're not going to ever get 2 SEC teams. You're not going to ever get 2 Big Ten teams. You're not going to ever get 2 Pac-12 teams. So this, because Jim, you're going to.
There'll always be.
There could always
be the possibility that you can wind up with 2 teams from the same conference getting into the final game.
Well, I don't like that, and I don't think that is what's going to create interest
throughout
the whole country.
It's not going to create interest in it. I agree.
Yeah. So, and you know what? I'm sort of sorry that you had the paper open to that page, because we're off on a subject that I don't know however many people listen to us. I don't know how many people are really interested in this subject either, besides Dana.
Dana's listening to us.
Who just fell asleep, and you just woke her up. Okay.
And she just wants to know, where's Michigan State going?
Yeah, Michigan State. Well, that's a good point.
And that's
do you remember last year? You said to me, Michigan State, and I don't know if it was they were going to play Ohio State, and everybody was sort of making that out to be a game that where Ohio State was going to, no question, they're going to win that game. And I said, well, you know what? I think Michigan State's got a good shot at winning it. And we went through the reasons why I thought that was going to be the case. And they did end up winning. And then when they went out to the West Coast to play in the Rose Bowl, thank you, John, the same thing was being said. Stanford, whoever they were going to play, was, the favorite team. And why? Why are they the favorite team? Michigan State had played well all year. They had a good defense.
Incredible defense.
They had the wind under their wings. And I'm like, why the hell? No, I'm serious. That counts for a lot.
I just loved your wind under the wings.
Well, that's what it is. You got the wind under your wings. You're playing well. You have confidence. You've won a lot of games. You're a good team, and so why who the heck? And not to put Stanford down, but who the heck is Stanford?
That's right. Exactly.
I mean, really, what Michigan State should be bowing down to Stanford? I would say they're both great schools with great football traditions, basically. And why would you say why one is better than the other? Because they're on the West Coast, and the writers deify them because they don't see them as much.
And
that's the problem.
And you're Michigan State, you're coming out of the Big Ten, and the Big Ten isn't really a football power. They're a football
which is bogus. It's a lot of bunk as well.
They're a basketball conference.
A basketball conference, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of garbage.
It is garbage. Basically garbage, and it's similar to the Beltway writers on politics, because everything. No, seriously, everything gets said. Everything gets said, among a certain group of people, so they all parrot the same thing, and that's what happens with these sports. You know what? the guys who are there covering all this stuff start to talk about a certain thing or a certain conference being this and a certain conference being that, and then it's the conventional wisdom, and the conventional wisdom is garbage.
Yeah.
So that's just
It's all got to play out. We'll see what happens.
definitely
It's all got to play out.
go
so.
Sparty.
Go Sparty.
I was I'll
Sparty
tell you-
on!
You know what? And I could actually say that without trying to curry favor with Dana here because she's a Sparty grad. But no, I mean in the '66 game between Michigan State and Notre Dame, I was an MSU backer and was really learned a lesson at a young age because the next year I thought Michigan State, oh man, Michigan State's going to be a power. And, all of their good guys went, and, they started to drop off a little bit. So it was a lesson as a young guy that I learned, you know what, you got to just watch who's there and see who's actually on the field, and it's not going to a good team's not automatically going to repeat itself, especially at the college level where guys are coming and going
all the time.
So
if you build a good reputation on the college level, you get a steady flow. So you can always get those years where most of the time you're going to be a powerhouse.
That's true.
See Ohio State. See Michigan until Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez came along.
Interesting thing about college sports. I was talking to somebody the other day about Tom Brady. And when he was at Michigan, he backed up. Who was it? Was it Haney? Who was he backing up at Michigan? Or Drew Henson?
Drew
Henson?
Drew Henson, maybe? Yeah.
I think Drew Henson. Yeah. And the thing was, now, again, I'm not trying to put Drew Henson down, but if you look at their pro careers, obviously Brady is the better QB. But Brady waited until he was a senior, basically, to play at Michigan. And one of the reasons was Drew Henson was a local guy. He was a Michigan guy. And I don't know if Lloyd Carr was the coach at that time, whoever it was, probably would have been hung out to dry had Brady gotten the nod over Henson because Brady was a California guy. And so even if the coach would have seen that, say, in his mind, Brady was the superior quarterback, he probably couldn't have even gone there because Henson was such a big name in Michigan. So Brady was locked on the bench for 3 years, finally played his senior year, and now we've seen the way that's played out over the years in terms of who was at least the better quarterback terms of their pro career.
Right. I mean, would he have gotten the opportunity if what was his name at New England that got injured? Drew
Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe hadn't gotten hurt.
I don't know. You know what? Now, in that case, at least from what a little bit I've read about it, I think he may have gotten the opportunity because I think that when Parcells was there, he was a Bledsoe guy. And Bledsoe, I'll tell you what, I just read Bob Ryan's autobiography, Scribe, and he covered all the Boston
teams. Sports for years.
And he pointed out that Drew Bledsoe's career is nothing to sneeze at. 49,000 some passing yards.
Yeah.
A very good quarterback.
He was a good quarterback.
But I think Belichick, for Belichick's cup of tea was Brady. And I think they made the moves to ensure that Brady was there. But it did happen.
It had to happen
Bledsoe
because of an injury.
Yeah.
And that's how he got his opportunity and everything else. And they went to the Super Bowl that year, didn't they?
His first. I'm not sure about that.
I think that was the first year he went to the Super Bowl.
So what else you got there in front
Well,
of you?
I think it was, all is well. The Bears won.
All is well now for a week in Bearland.
All is well, and then they have Tampa Bay on Sunday. And if they don't win on Sunday against Lovey, of course, then the meatballs will start. I gotta bring back Smith. We get rid of this Trusticle guy.
Well, I had people tell me prior to the Vikings game that if they don't win the Minnesota and Tampa Bay games, that they won't. They're not going to win another game all year. And I'm thinking, well, don't we have to play Minnesota twice?
We have to
play them once there.
We have to play Minnesota twice. We have to play. Let's see.
Well, the Lions are on Thanksgiving
The
Day.
Lions, we have 2 games with the Lions. The Saints are 4-6, and the Cowboys are 7-3. And the Saints are here, and they don't do well in cold weather.
The same people, though, are telling me that, we got a tough part of the schedule coming up. I'm thinking, you know what? I thought that the toughest part of the schedule was the first part, because I'm not disrespecting New Orleans or Dallas, but I think regardless, for the Bears, those are beatable teams. And as good a season as the Lions are having, I believe any team in our division, at least my way of thinking, including the Packers, is always a game that is a winnable game.
Yeah. Anything can happen. And, I mean, you have New Orleans here. New Orleans and Atlanta are leading the NFC South with a 4-6 record.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a hot
Well, yeah,
pile.
it's not exactly
that's
like
a hot
New
pile of
Orleans
garbage.
is tearing it up.
No. Hey, does that mean New Orleans is going to work out at Ridgewood again this year?
Are they coming to town again?
Yes.
How did they get to come to town 2 years in a row?
I don't know. Just the way the schedule
that's
fell.
actually, Jim, that's a great question. I wonder if they will prevail on us to work out there again.
Hey, that'd be cool.
Actually, I would think at this time of the year they might be looking for someplace inside the workout. I don't know how they actually.
Well, I think they wound up, if I remember what it was, they actually they came here and actually wound up having to stay out near O'Hare.
Mm-hmm.
I think they stayed at the Hyatt or something in O'Hare instead of in the downtown area. So they needed some place to do a walkthrough here on Saturday, and there was Ridgewood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, you know what happened there is there was somebody there had a Sean Payton is the coach.
Right.
So he is in Naperville, he's a grad of one of the Naperville schools. So obviously he's got some connections here in Chicago. My understanding is he called St. Pat's initially. Now, if Sean his memory must have really slipped, because even though he's a Chicago area guy, he should realize St. Pat's really doesn't have the facilities to accommodate him. But he called St. Pat's, and St. Pat's basically told him they couldn't help him. They don't have the facilities. But then we have a St. Pat's connection at Ridgewood, and St. Pat's called us, and that's how that's how they ended up here.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
And that was the name of that story. But
okay. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens if they like. I mean, and you know what? They come and they work out for an hour or so, and then they're gone. So it's not like
it's just a little walkthrough. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I did not watch the game. I was still on Bears sabbatical on Sunday, so I'm still carrying out my Bears sabbatical. I might break down actually this Sunday.
I thought you gave that up when we watched the Packers. I thought you watched part of the Packers game.
Well, I watched like 2 minutes because I wanted to see where they were, because I wanted to listen to Doug and Obi.
Oh, so you wanted to hear the brutal reality.
I wanted to hear the reality, especially after I looked at a tweet, and I looked at Twitter and I saw a tweet from the producer that said, I'm seriously worried Doug is going to have a stroke.
Well, it's interesting that I put it this way: if the Vikings would have been able to torch him, then I would say we'd be in serious trouble. But when you look at the Vikings and serious, that really the Vikings have that could is a serious threat offensively.
I mean, this was one bad team beating another bad team.
That's
really all it came down to.
Yeah.
Although you've got Mark Potash today saying just maybe, the Bears aren't as bad as they looked during the 3-game skid.
Well, I think there's always that. I mean, sometimes you can look terrible, and then all of a sudden you can turn it around a little bit. I would never. You never look. If you are the winner of a 50-something to whatever game, you're never as good as you look, and if you're the loser, you're never really as bad as you look. I think the reality usually lies somewhere in between.
And I think the reality on last week, or the Packer game, was just, I don't know. I don't think it was a very well coached game. And I mean, if there's any consolation,
Packers laid 50-something.
Yeah,
on the
I was
Eagles.
just going to say they laid 53 on the Eagles.
Well, let me ask you this.
Please
I've
do.
heard the ESPN people lauding Chip Kelly and the job he's done with the Eagles, and I think Chip Kelly's done a good job with the Eagles.
Right.
But I don't hear anybody. I haven't heard anybody questioning Chip Kelly's coaching abilities because the Packers laid 50-some points on his team. But I would have to say this.
I'm sure.
I think if you question Trustman's abilities, I would say question Kelly's abilities, and here's where I'm coming from. When you get a team that's all of a sudden they're sort of breaking out on you, and you see that, what is your response to that? Are you gonna try? It's like the nuclear arms race between the Russians and the Americans. Now, you're gonna try to match them bomb for bomb, or are you gonna try to now control the tempo of the game and try to take them out of their game? See, I'm saying this: if you're just gonna say, "Oh, we got a big time offense too. We're just going to try to match you." I think you're in serious trouble.
You've hurt yourself there, because if you're gonna try to do that, if you're going to commit suddenly, well, we got to start throwing, you're leaving yourself up, you're leaving yourself open. If you're going up against a good defensive backfield, more interceptions, more mistakes, more blown routes,
definitely.
And I'm sure that Philadelphia is chock full of meatball sports fans. And I'm sure Philadelphia Sports Radio this week was berserk over that, especially.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, especially, there's a town that, the reputation has always been they'd boo a cure for cancer. And remember, they booed Santa Claus.
Yeah. Now, you have your ear to the ground, Jim. The guys were talking this morning over coffee about the fact that there seems to be some noise coming out of the Cutler camp and the Bears camp. Somebody said that Cutler had made comments to the effect that if he would be open to being traded.
Supposedly, I've read that too.
And I'm wondering where that came from, because we didn't really get into a big conversation about it this morning.
I don't know. That has supposedly come out, and it would be a way for the Bears not to. It would be at least a way for the Bears to avoid some of the hit that they'd take on the cap next year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think next year, based on his guarantee, it's like $16.5 or $17 million next year.
You know what's forever interesting about sports is that you and I sat here when the Bears signed Cutler to that contract and said, and I'll say it today, I don't think they had much choice. I think that's who they had to sign. There was nobody else out there that was going to be the answer, so it had to be him. So they had to sign him. But at the same time, I could see where, okay, this season isn't going well. Cutler is, whether it's right or not, he's still getting a lot of the blame for the bad things that are happening on the team. And I'm not totally convinced that that's all right either. But let's put it this way. They laid a lot of money on him. They've invested a lot of time in him. Everything hasn't been lined up perfectly for him to be as successful as he might be, because he's gone through a lot of offensive coordinators in the time he's been here, and I think that's probably retarded his progress to a certain degree. But let's put it this way. He's a magnet for all the bad things that happen to the Bears, and I don't think it's going to take a lot for him to get over that hump. So I think maybe it's time for him to depart, whether it's his fault, what's happening or not. And I think maybe both sides see that. And I would agree with that too. So you know what? You could be sort of on both sides of this conversation, and there's no wrong or right to it, I don't think.
And you're right. There really isn't. It has to get to the point. Well, first of all, you've got nobody in the pipeline to develop. Jimmy Clausen? No. David Fales? I don't know. There's nobody there.
Well, I got to ask you this: why would you,
if you get rid of him,
say Jimmy Clausen? No, because I'm thinking that Jimmy Clausen is there just for this possibility.
Maybe so, but I'm just saying from past performance.
Well, past performance, but we got the quarterback whisperer as our coach. So
are you sure he's still going to be here?
Yeah, I think he'll be here. I don't think the Bears are going to. I don't think the Bears are. Really, it was an upset that they paid Lovey for a year to not coach, and I don't think they're going to pay Trustman for a year or 2 years or whatever not to coach. And I think rightfully so, because I have to say I'm not going to dump the fault on the defensive coach. I'll dump it. I'll just say the coaching staff as in general. I think the big problem with our team is our defense. I think our offense has been good enough. I don't think it's been spectacular, but I don't think that basically, no matter what the writers say, I don't think we really have the personnel to be spectacular. I think we have the personnel to be good, and we are pretty good.
And they are pretty good.
Yeah.
What do you think of what Marshall brings, not only on the field, but what is he doing in the locker room? Is this a distraction in the locker room when you got some guy challenging guys on Twitter to a fight?
Well, I think, let's put it this way. You're never going to get the real story because the press had made a big deal for a while of how Marshall had straightened his act out, because remember when he came, he didn't have a great rep.
Yeah.
And everybody on the Bears has gone out of their way to say he's a good guy. And I'll go back to this. I think we talked on this show one time about, say, a guy like Pac-Man Jones, who had been off the field, has been in a ton of trouble.
Yeah.
But you don't know. I mean,
on the
how
field.
how do his teammates look? That could be a guy who will stick his nose in there, as we used to say. That was an old football way of saying that's a guy who's willing to, to go to war with you. So they may love him in that respect, but you don't know. I mean, Marshall could be looked at by his teammates as, hey, this guy will go to war with you, and we love that. And he may throw out some goofy things to the press and want to do this thing with this fan from Detroit. But I don't know. It's very hard to determine how he's looked at in the locker room. Now, I will say this. Brandon Marshall has been getting more play nationally. I think, didn't he have a small show on ESPN or something for a while?
He does. I think he does a show locally on ESPN, and he's on that. What is it? It's on Showtime, I think, Pro Football Weekly or whatever, or whatever it is.
So he may be in in an area where he's starting to brand himself for maybe a career beyond his career on the field. And that might be part of what's happening. And as much as I sort of don't like that, me personally, the way I think about things, at the same time, I can understand it. Because if that's what he's angling at, then maybe that's why you have this, they're playing it as a goofy thing with a Detroit fan. But it's just more to keep his name out there for his career beyond this career.
Maybe so. That he's just trying to get his brand in place for the future.
But I would say this. I think Brandon Marshall maybe has a quirky way of doing it, but I think he genuinely probably like to see the team do better. And maybe this is just his attempt as one of the leaders of the team to do that. I don't know. Now, I'm not talking about the Twitter thing with the fan, but I'm talking about some of the things that you hear about, him yelling in the locker room and this and that. Well, I got to tell you, guys yell at each other all the time. I don't care if it's little league or it's the pros. They, people get upset and they yell at each other.
If you've got a locker room where nobody's saying anything, there's something wrong. You're always going to have a locker room where somebody's going to be mad at somebody. Somebody's going to be yelling about something.
What upsets
you're
me
always
more.
You're always going to have a coach who's going to be mad at something. I still think of going in and telling Don Nye that that it was time to come out for the second half, and I had to duck, as the chair went past my head.
Oh, jeez. I have to tell you, you mentioned to me last week, I think, when we talked about the one thing that concerns me more, say, than what Marshall's doing, is you had made reference to the fact that you had heard or had been reported that Lance Briggs sits there in the team meetings or the defensive team meetings and just sort of zones out because, I've heard it all before or I'm not interested. And I'm like, that would concern me more than a guy yelling.
He admitted it.
And
that bothered me.
The guy yelling at least is engaged. Whether he's on or off base, at least there's some passion there, and the guy cares about it. Whether he's doing it the right way or the wrong way is a totally different story, but at least he's engaged and he's passionate about it, and that's a good thing in my way. But a guy who, in my way of thinking, but a guy who's zoned out on you is like, well, what good is he? I mean, my first reaction is, why are you even on the field?
Yeah, at that point, that would be my reaction. Why are you still playing?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you still playing? You know you're at the end of your career, but if you're not at least there trying to bring something,
Right.
bring something to the game, bring something to the other players on there. I mean, look at Peanut Tillman. Here's Peanut Tillman, who's done for the year, maybe for his career.
Mm-hmm.
But he's acting. He's on there. He's trying to be helpful. He's trying to act like a coach.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I give him more credit than that. I give him more credit for that than Lance Briggs worrying about his restaurant and trying to stay awake during a meeting. John's fooling around with the controls. Must be time for a station break.
Is it, John? We
Yep.
going station break?
The music magically comes up.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John Nevada Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, November the 19th, the year 2014. And we are Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and Jack Frost 88.1 FM WXMS Harwood Heights, Illinois. And now, back to Jim and Rich.
I'm glad he acknowledged Jack Frost FM. He didn't do it in the opening. I was going to.
Well, it's funny that we both picked up on the same thing because Jack Frost, when John made his little announcement here between, right after the break. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, I know you brought some contributions for Jack Frost today,
I have
Jim,
a couple of things.
What were they?
I have a couple of things there. One is could you pass those over?
Thanks,
these
John.
are a couple of things
Thank
that
you.
I want to put on there. One is
Okay.
one is actually a good jazz album. I'm a jazz fan, and there's an album came out a number of years ago called Jingle Bell Jazz with some mostly instrumentals. All the way, some great stuff with the Dexter Gordon Quintet, McCoy Tyner, Duke Ellington, Lionel Hampton doing White Christmas. Got a couple of great songs in here. Carmen McRae singing the Christmas song. Dave Brubeck, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And my favorite, Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, Deck Us All with Boston Charlie. Scatty Waddy Wad and Kalamazoo.
Now, you know what? Before the show, I was looking at John's, just talking about John with his large record collection, and Jim is bringing some contributions to Jack Frost. You guys, your musical knowledge puts mine right in the dumper. And but I was going to say, I have to mention to everybody that on December 3rd at Fanny and Schmoes at 7:00. We have trivia night, and we have two of our prospective members of the team. We have Dana and Jim here, and the team is starting to shape up. We've got Rita, who's Joe and Stephanie's grandma, is going to be part of the team. But then we have a couple younger members. We have Tabitha, who works the front desk at the library, is going to be on the team, and then we have Elias, who's one of the answer desk librarians, who's going to potentially be on the team. But we have a free agent who just doesn't seem to ever want to commit to come into the fold.
Jimmy Sunshine.
And the other day I was discussing this with Stephanie, and I
Dana's
said,
calling.
well, if Jimmy Sunshine, decides to get off the schneid and commit to our team, that'll give us 7 instead of 6. Or, and I said, I may have to step aside, in good faith and let Jimmy participate because he finally decided that he's going to be on the team. and just watch you guys go to work.
Well,
But
we'll see what happens.
we'll see what happens there.
The other one I brought is a Christmas gift for you from Phil Spector. We have Darlene Love doing White Christmas.
What was it? A gun or something? A Christmas gift?
And then at the end we have a Christmas wish from Phil Spector.
Wow, that's touching.
That's touching, and you hear we hear Ronnie Spector in the back going, "Get the gun out of my mouth."
Yeah, right.
We've got Bobby Sox in the blue jeans doing the Bells of St. Mary, the Crystals, the Ronettes. Some great 60s rock and roll with the Phil Spector Wall of Sound.
Does Tommy LaStella have any?
I don't know.
anything on
I
there?
haven't. We have to check if Tommy LaStella has there. That was a interesting trade yesterday. Of course, then again, the middle infielders.
Yeah, they're stocking up now.
They're stocking up middle infielders. I wish they'd stock up on pitchers.
Well, we gave away a pitcher that we had gotten as a prospect in the trade, so that's a pretty interesting development.
And they traded their numbers 2, 3, and 4 international signing bonuses slot for the Braves' number 4 slot.
When you say, and I read those things, it gives me a headache.
I don't understand
the signing bonus slots.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I just remember, we're still going to so and so went to this team and they got this player and a player to be named later. That was about as technical as we'd get back in our day.
Yeah, I could understand, a bat and a bag of balls and some spikes or something.
Yeah,
but,
and
that I understand. But signing
and Harry Cheedy being traded for himself.
I like that. That's got to be the all-time best trade.
I think
Harry Cheedy for himself.
Harry Cheedy was traded for a player to be named later, and the player to be named later was Harry Cheedy, and they sent him back.
See, I like that.
I think so.
See, that's some creative trading there.
Now we have to figure out salary slots. If baseball ever puts in a salary cap,
oh gosh,
the leagues will become paralyzed. You're going to have a salary capologist to be able to figure out all this stuff.
I tell you, the more we ever, in our conversations away from the mic, when we talk about the sabermetrics, the more I'm thinking, boy, my dad used to say, never BS a BSer. But I think these guys got to be the biggest BSers in the world, because I actually, the more I find out about these stats, the less I think that there's anything new about them. They may have been referred to as something different than than what they're the acronyms they use for them now, but I don't think there's really anything new in any of this stuff.
Well, a couple of things that I think, even though we joke about it, the BABIP,
Mm-hmm.
I think can be a good measure of what a ball player is, batting average on balls in play. I think for a pitcher, the FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, you're actually looking at a pitcher from what he controls.
Yeah.
That's one stat that I think is meaningful, and I think it actually becomes a great predictor on how a particular pitcher might perform the following year. Even, but some of the others, I'm sitting there going, okay, wait, what does this mean? And I got to tell you, if you want to get your eyes crossed, look at some of the stats and analytics that they're trying to bring into basketball now.
Yeah, I don't even want to go there.
Oh, I got a book about it at home, and I tried to read it. It makes my eyes cross.
When I think about that, Jim, though, I think it's something that I understand. There are certain people who want to, put a number on anything. But when you think about basketball, a guy who sets a pick or a guy who boxes out would be good examples. And I suppose you could look at that and put numbers on it. But you know what? The coaches especially your really technical guys like a Tom Thibodeau, a Bobby Knight, a John Wooden, or somebody like that, who really puts a lot of emphasis on those types of things. And those are types of things that winning teams do, setting picks, blocking out, probably other things in basketball that I'm not enough of an expert to talk about. The really successful teams and the really successful coaches know these things, and you know what? They're not going to put a number on the number of times that Joakim Noah sets a pick or that he boxes out, and he may not get the rebound, but it helps somebody else get a rebound. But they know it, so you don't have to put a number on it. And you know what? They also notice it when that guy, because of age or he's lost a step or whatever, stops doing it. It's something you don't need to put a number on. When you talk about BIP balls. What's the
batting average on balls? Batting average balls in play.
When the Cubs had gotten, I don't know what this would have been, the late '90s, early 2000s, when Nomar Garcia, that would have been what, 90, when they got Garciaparra. That would have been late 90s somewhere?
Late 90s, I
97
think.
maybe?
98? 98, maybe.
Okay, my son was still a young kid and just starting to be interested in sports, and I said, geez, you know what, I would love to see the Cubs signing Ivan Rodriguez over the season, because that was a possibility. And he asked me why, and I said, well, in my mind, I envisioned first three hitters in the lineup, and I think this was prior to Garciaparra being hurt, of Kenny Lofton, Rodriguez, and Garciaparra. And he said, well, why do you think that would be so good? And I said, because all three of those guys put the bat on the ball. You don't have a guy none of your first three hitters is a strikeout guy.
Right.
They're all guys who put the ball in play. And I think, that to me would be a great first three guys to get the ball rolling, and those three guys would get the most at-bats because they're at the top of your order. And I said, that to me would be really excellent. Well, that goes along with your batting average with balls in play,
right,
because you're looking at guys who put the bat on the ball. And again, I mean, obviously you want guys swinging and putting the bat on the ball as opposed to striking out. Striking out, there's no, even if you hit a ball in play that is not a well-hit ball, you put the defense in a position to either make errors, or if you got a runner on first, even if you hit the ball, half-baked ground ball, you can advance
the runner at least.
So hitting the ball in play has always been a big thing in baseball, obviously.
It is, but now I'm wondering, with this theory that you got to go deeper into the count, lay off the pitches, how is that going to change?
Well, first off, I don't totally buy into that theory.
I don't necessarily do that either.
I've always said, and I was always dealing more with 16-inch softball, but it applies to league ball. Here's the way I would say it. A lot of batters are afraid to get two strikes, okay? Mm-hmm. They don't want to be in a situation where they have two strikes. But my feeling is this. You see a lot of batters swing at bad balls early in the count. I say this. Look for the pitch you can handle, because pitchers obviously make mistakes. So if you see that ball, if that ball is on the first pitch of your at-bat, that's what you got to be swinging at. You got to be ready for it. A pitch you can handle. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't jibe with going deep in the count. Mm-hmm. But I don't think deep in the count is a great strategy. If you're getting good pitches, say you got your first two pitches, the pitcher gives you pitches you can handle, and you're watching them go by because you want to get deep in the count, that makes no sense to me.
Right.
And the other thing is, why, if you're going to swing it now, the converse is, if you're going to swing at a bad pitch early in the count, why are you afraid of going two strikes? Because if the pitcher gets you in a situation where you haven't seen that pitch you like or you can handle, now you do have two strikes, and you're going to have to swing at his pitch. What's the difference if you swing at a pitch that's bad for you to handle with two strikes, or if you swing at it early in the count?
Yeah,
there is no difference.
There's no difference. It's still going to wind up with the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. We've had a lot of things happening around here lately. We've got a new manager with the Cubs. We haven't even gotten into that one yet. I was going to talk about.
That's true.
I was going to talk about basketball, but I don't know yet. Let's thoughts Thoughts on Madden?
Well, my first thoughts, and I guess it's because I've been a Cubs follower and fan for a long time, is, and you go back a little further, well, you name Leo DeRocher, but my first thoughts are Don Baylor, Dusty Baker, and Lou Piniella.
Right.
Did
Baylor have that much success before he came here?
I think he was. I think he had, wasn't he with Colorado?
Colorado.
He done pretty well with Colorado, I think.
You get him in the playoffs
I
at
think,
least?
Yeah, I think he had a good rep coming in.
Okay.
And, Baylor was always known as a headsy, hustling player, so I think that gave him some good credibility when he came in as well, at least with me, and I think with other people that report as well. But the other thing, the papers love to hang their hats on, I think they get bored with the status quo like anybody else. So you hear about Madden with his the cowboy trip where everybody's got to come dressed as a cowboy or in Western attire. Or you hear, everybody's come dressed as a pirate or something, or he brings a penguin or a snake in the locker room. And to me, that's all trivial stuff.
It's trivial stuff.
And you know what? It may be that with Tampa Bay, with their personnel and their situation, whatever that happened to be, that was stuff that maybe needed to be done and was helpful. That doesn't necessarily translate to whether it's the Cubs or it would have been any other city. It's still how does Joe Madden manage the players that he's got? And to me, that's all this other stuff means nothing. And I'm not so sure that we have a sabermetrically friendly team. Maybe I'm going to say this. Maybe our team. I don't know if it was before we went on the air or earlier in the show. Maybe we're going to break the mold and start changing things so people look at them the other way. Maybe maybe we're going to have a fence-busting team, which does sabermetrically.
It does.
Sort of cancels the sabermetrics out.
That cancels sabermetrics out. And the other factor, as silly as it may sound, you're going to have to see how Wrigley Field is going to play next year with all the changes in the ballpark.
No, that doesn't sound silly because I think when you change the
you're changing the
park, you could potentially change the way the park plays.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have a big message board out there in the outfield. Mm-hmm. How is that going to affect the park? You've got advertising signs coming up on the back, on the extended walls with that. How is the park going to change? How are the winds going to change now in the park?
It's a great point.
Especially when you get those days when the winds are blowing in.
Definitely.
It'll be interesting. It'll be fascinating to see how the park will play now.
Well, I always not kiddingly, I shouldn't say that, but we talked, I think, one day last week over coffee, and I said, well, how does sabermetrics affect Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays?
That's.
I mean, what does sabermetrics have to? You know what? Are you going to tell Babe Ruth, hey, Babe, you got to go deeper in the count. You can't be swinging from the heels all the time.
Babe, your bip is down a little bit. I have to actually look that up and see if anybody's calculated that out.
Do you remember, Jim? It would have been. I guess this would have been the 70s. I think Don Zimmer was the manager of the Red Sox, or could have been somebody else. Yeah. And Jim Rice was on the team. Yeah. And there was a big hoo-ha for a couple of days that Rice wouldn't bunt or missed a signal or just plain refused to bunt. And everybody, made a big deal about it. Hey, Rice should know how to bunt, and he's got it, blah, blah, blah. And I would agree that basically everybody should know how to lay down a bunt. But I think Rice's comeback was something to the effect is bunt. I'm a guy who hits the ball out of the park. Why am I bunting? And I think, I'm not saying that the player should rebel against the manager. The manager wants you to bunt, whether it's stupid or right. That's his decision, and you need to have discipline on the team and go along with it. But Rice makes a good point. Why am I bunting? I'm a power hitter. I mean, I'm a guy who can knock the ball out of the park. And I think that is an excellent point. I really have a hard time. I'm not saying never is it the right thing, but why would Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth or Willie Mays bunt? Do you ever hear very many stories about those guys bunting?
Maybe Mays because of his speed.
Well, yeah. Well, Mantle was fast as well.
Mantle was fast too, but Mays, because of his speed, that could, if the situation was right, he could lay one down, have a good chance to beat it out.
Yeah, that's
true.
Especially
if you're in a situation, maybe it's a tight ball game, you want to move the runners.
Well, let me modify that. I said I'm not saying it's never appropriate, but here's what I would say would be better. Say if you do have the speed and you're leading off, and a home run won't do it for you. You're down 3 or 4, so you need to get an inning started. Dragging one or whatever and trying to get on base. If you have the speed, that makes sense. But say you're Jim Rice, and okay, the idea is you want to move the runner along. Here's a guy who doesn't do much bunting.
Mm-hmm.
Why not, if you want to move the runner, maybe hit and run? I mean, where the guy is, he swings the bat. He doesn't bunt.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
You can do this in different ways.
You can do it in different ways, sure.
But I guess the whole point is when you have a guy who does better, obviously swinging the bat, why would you be thinking about having him bunt to sacrifice himself? I mean, you could have him swing and sacrifice himself by a hit and run type of situation. Mm-hmm. So, some of the things that become controversial are just stupid.
It becomes that, but I was just going back thinking of the situation like with Mays. If Mays would have dropped the bunt, in a situation where you had runners on base and move them along, they may have been playing back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He could have dropped the bunt, got on first base, moved the runners too.
That's true.
It depended on the situation.
Well, I always say, though, if you have a horse, you got to ride him. And it's just like saying, well, are we going to use Jimmy Brown?
Geez, that was profound.
Jimmy Brown was never known as a great blocker, but you know what? Paul Brown, who was a stickler for detail, was a smart enough man to say, well, you know what? The all-time leading rusher in the NFL for a number of years until his record was broken by Peyton. I guess we could maybe turn our heads a little bit on the fact that he's not such a hot blocker, because you know what, the guy runs for over 1,000 yards a year.
He can
and he's the most devastating offensive weapon in the league. So I
think we can turn our head.
We can turn our heads a little bit on that.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, let's see. What else do we got? We've got about 10 minutes left here.
Well, you wanted to get into basketball?
I don't know.
Come on, Jim, roll the dice, swing it, baby.
I just kind of pulled something out here.
What did you pull out?
I got the NBA preview on.
This is a family show,
from
Jim.
SI.
Hey, can't be pulling anything out.
Hey. Excuse me while I whip this out. John just crossed himself. Dana's going, oh, God, embarrassed me again.
Well, you said it.
Okay. Embarrassed me again. I love preseason predictions because sometimes I think maybe we should just keep these and see by the end of the year how it looks.
I'm for that.
SI says the Bulls will be the best team in the East.
Over the Cavaliers?
Over the Cavaliers. Cavaliers number 2.
I tell you what, the Bulls, I think, are going to be a very good team. I don't know if they're going to be the best team in the East, but it's possible.
We'll have to see when Derrick Rose decides that he wants to play, unless he's taking a night off because he wants to make sure he can go to a meeting when he's outside of basketball.
Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to about the meeting.
Oh, you missed that quote where he said that when I don't play now, and I'll probably get the I can't get it exact, but I'll give you the gist of it. He said that when he doesn't play now, it's not because of anything that happens now.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's going to be for the future, because he said I want to be able to be pain free when I'm going to graduations and meetings.
Oh, okay. Okay. I heard the gist of that. I didn't realize that that the meetings was part of.
Meetings was part of it too. So
okay.
I thought that was John's going, I don't believe he said that. I can't believe that's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
John and Charles
Barkley are in agreement on that one. But that
I honestly, and again, I never, because Derrick Rose hasn't done anything like extra legal that put him in hot water with the press. So I'm not like an anti-Derrick Rose guy. I even said that when I said we thought we should have traded him after the first time he got hurt.
Right.
So I'm not like down on Derrick Rose. I think I agree what he said was sort of stupid, but I will tell you this. I am not convinced that the Bulls can't do just as well without Derrick Rose as they do with him. And again, it's not a put down of him. I'm not saying that he doesn't contribute when he's there, but when Aaron Brooks or Kirk Heinrich run the team as opposed to Derrick Rose, I don't think we do any less well.
I don't think it's anything horrible when they're in the ball club.
No.
I mean, they beat the Clippers last night.
Mm-hmm.
What, by 10, 12? Something like that. I can't remember the score.
And the way the game started, Jim, the Clippers were down 10 or had them down 10 or 12 early.
Right.
But I'd say this, to me at this point, Derrick Rose, in my thinking, and I know my thinking doesn't count for much in the scheme of the Bulls, obviously, or for a lot of other people. But you know what? I don't think that, to me, I don't even really count him in my thinking about how the team is going to do because you don't know if he's going to be there. And I think we'd be a lot better off if we knew definitely he wasn't going to be there because you can't count on him being there all the time.
You're never quite sure. And I think the other issue, too, is no matter what they do, and I'm not just speaking of Derrick Rose, I'm speaking of the whole roster, and I'm speaking of Thibodeau here. I don't think Thibodeau yet understands the idea of coaching for the season. He seems like he has to coach every game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the issue because he's got the rap of burning out these players.
Yeah.
But because of playing too much time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Maybe Rose gets the idea that, okay, I think the thing, I had to laugh. I listened to Boris and Bernstein one day, and after that quote came out, I don't want to be in pain. And Bernstein said, I got news for you. Everything's going to hurt once you get past 40.
That's true, too.
I said, and you're a basketball player. I said, what are you going to wind up with most of all hurting? You said, you're going to have sore feet.
That's true. Jim, when you talk about Thibodeau, he's he really fascinates me. And I understand the rap on him about the number of minutes the guys play. And I think there's, I'm sort of on the fence about that because I think I understand where he's coming from there. But at the same time, there's a good point to be made in the context of the whole season. How does that really help or hurt your team? But one of the most interesting things about Thibodeau is for some reason I check the Bulls box score. They're scoring every game that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fascinating because you'll see now there was a game a week or so ago. I think Mike Dunleavy was the leading scorer, had 27. The next game, and obviously the opposition changes, Dunleavy had like 4 or 6. And I'm not knocking that. I just find it interesting because I'm going to attribute some of that to the coach's strategy because if Dunleavy is a good match against Team A and he can go off for 25 or 30, which he's capable of doing, the coach, in my mind, is taking advantage of that.
Yeah, he's playing the matches.
Right.
He's playing the match.
Then the next game, Jimmy Butler goes for 32 against the next opponent, and Dunleavy's got 6. I'm like, you know what? That fascinates me. I'm thinking that the coach has a lot to do with that. And I'm thinking the coach is a pretty intelligent guy, at least as far as that goes.
And I looked last night, and I didn't. I think this is too early of an. This is too early.
Yeah, it's not going to have the box.
But I looked last night because I have Yahoo Sports on my phone and I get the updates. When I looked at the box score last night after the game was over, I noticed the starters were very well balanced scoring wise.
Some nights it's like that too.
Butler I think with 22, Dunleavy may have had 19.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody seemed to play good. So okay, you got a nice balanced scoring. You stick with your starters. You play with your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Thibodeau, is Thibodeau is not going to be one that's going to be formulaic. He's going to be instinctive.
He is not formulaic at all.
No, he's going to be instinctive. He is going to be an old-time coach. He's not going to be looking at the analytics.
No.
But I think he's got to get it through him once in a while that, okay, here's a game. We've got it under control. I don't need my starters out there.
Yeah, I suppose. But you have to. I mean, you're not inside of his head, knowing. It's hard to know what his thinking process would be on a game-to-game and basis, and what he's trying to get across by doing what he does in terms of the minutes. I will say this: he's coaching professionals. And the bulk of his coaching experience has been with professionals, even as an assistant.
He always is. Yeah.
But sometimes you're right. When you look at it, or you read the comments in the paper about guys having to earn their playing time, which I don't disagree with, but it is a little bit more of a high school college mentality in that respect than it would be a pro mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not criticizing Thibodeau, because maybe more coaches need to do that. When you look at Greg Popovich, drew a lot of fire last year when he just gave 4 of his starters the night off.
He gave his starters a night off one time
because he felt that was going to be more beneficial to his team.
It was going to be beneficial for them, and he was playing to make sure you had guys ready for the playoffs.
Well, I have to say this: the one thing I want to throw in, because we're running out of time, I really like. The more I see of it, the more I like the Pau Gasol pickup, and I have to say
he didn't play last night. I don't know. I don't
know what that was about.
Okay.
But you know what I see, I think it's going to benefit Joakim Noah a lot, because Joakim now I think can concentrate on his strengths, and scoring was not one of his strengths, but he was willing to try to do it, and sometimes he did it pretty well. But it's not his strength. With Gasol there, Noah's not going to have to worry about that.
He's not going to need to worry about it much.
I do want to say this: when the Lakers had Gasol, and he was really sort of Shaq's replacement. I saw Shaq and Kobe, as being sort of two superstars. I saw when Gasol came, my thinking was always, Gasol is not quite like Shaq. He's we talk about the Hall of Very Good in terms of
right.
That he's very good, but he's not quite like Shaq.
Quite, yeah.
But you know what? I got to say, he is a really good player, and better now up close when you see him more often, much better than I thought. And I got to say, if I dissed him at all in my own mind, I'm apologizing to him in my own mind, because he's a whole hell of a lot better than I thought that he really was.
John, you just said that. John turned around.
John.
Sorry, John turned around. He's shaking his head.
So
yeah, John just gets worried about us. All right, John. Just for that, we'll wrap it up, so we don't get in any more trouble.
Yep,
that's it. The music magically comes up.
Boy, what a way to stop the show! This is like the worst stop we've ever had.
Well, it's no worse than some of your grand exits.
Oh, usually though, we sort of really just work our way into it. This is Jim's going. Okay, that's it. We're done. End the show.
I don't want to get
John. Turn the music up.
I don't want to get any more trouble. You've caused enough today.
And the words of ravishing Rick Rude. Cut the music.
All right. Thanks for listening. We're going to be back next week.
All right.
We're going to do our turkey show next week. Turkeys in sports, and actually, we're going to open up turkeys in anything.
There we go.
All right. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.
Take care, everybody.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, November the 19th, the year 2014, on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with the WRHS sports announcers, Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita. Our audio engineer is James Rohde, radio station manager Kevin Zefalik, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, November the 18th. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And we are Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and Jack Frost 88.1 FM, WXMS, Harwood Heights, Illinois.